don't. I literally on that list of five, I like it because it helps me not feel overwhelmed by the world and all. Because think about it, there's always a million things you could be doing, a million people that you haven't talked to, a million places you could be. You got to focus. You got to shrink the world down to the part that matters. And so I have about five areas that matter to me. And my goal is to pour into those areas and make sure that I'm really pouring into them so I can be excellent in those five areas. Everything else falls to the wayside. So generally speaking, for example, with me, the way I end up being, and some people don't always understand it, and it's okay, is either you're talking to me all the time because you're in the top five of areas, like you're a family or you're somebody I work with, or you can't, or it's hard to even get a 2 minute phone call with me. It doesn't mean I don't care. It just means I don't have extra time to waste. So that extra 2 minutes is not available, but I might have an hour or two to talk to people that are helping me achieve a goal that matters for what we're trying to do as a company or what we're trying to do as a family. You understand? And that's really important, I think, for busy people because busy people get, sucked up in so many different directions and pulled in so many different directions. Will Smith actually was a person that introduced me to that idea years ago. And I don't know Will. I know his brother Harry, but Will, I saw him on TV and he said this, like, it was like 25 years ago. And he said, that he felt like the reason he got his first divorce was because he was so committed to his career. He said, I'm gonna pour everything into my career and then give my family the time that's left over. And what he found out was that when you're Will Smith and you're becoming this international movie star, you don't have any time left over. Your career takes up everything. So what happened was he would have nothing left for his family, so his family fell apart because he had nothing left to give them. And so he realized that he needed to put his family on that high priority list right next to his career and pour as much into the family as he pours into the career. And then that way both of those things get filled up. And in the book Traction, which I have my whole team read this book called Traction. And in this book, I think actually, I'm not sure, but I think we actually have extra copies. I got to see if I can get those put in the bookstore. You can get it on Amazon too. It's totally up to you because we got a bunch. We ordered a few hundred because we did something years ago. We did a program called the 48-Hour Business School. Anyway, in this book, they were talking about building what they call quarterly rocks, like rocks in your life. And so the analogy was that if you have, let's say you have a glass and you fill it halfway up with sand, like little tiny rocks. And then you have the big rocks, which are the important things you got to do. And the stand is like all the little stuff, the little distractions, responding to people on Twitter and checking your text messages and whatever stuff is not important. So if you fill the glass halfway up with sand, you can only get one or two rocks in the glass because the sand is taking up all the space. So for a lot of us, our little things eat up so much time that you don't have time to get to the big things. So what they said is instead you put the rocks in first and then you pour the sand in over top of the rocks. Do you understand? And that way you can have more space for rocks because you're prioritizing the rocks. So pick the rocks, pick the two or three rocks in your life, prioritize those things. Maybe in the morning when you get some time or afternoon or whatever, make those the first two or three things that you do every day. And then you say, okay, whatever I got left, I'll fill it in with a bunch of the BS that's going on around me. But until that time, I gotta handle my rocks. And here's the process. Here's what I want you to think about. White folks already set you on that pattern when it comes to running their businesses. They already made their businesses your quarterly rocks. Think about this. Is there anything more important than for most black people than getting up and going to work every day? Process this. It's like imagine if you go up to any of your friends, they have good jobs, maybe they work at the post office or wherever, Wendy's, or they work at Google or something, and you say, "Hey, why don't we go to the movies today? Why don't we go hang out? Why don't we go play golf today?" If they got to go to work, you know that that's not happening because work is not optional. Work is not only is it not optional, but it's the first thing that we do when we get up in the morning. So your best energy, your best mind, your best brain share, the time where you're wide awake, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, full of energy, and at your absolute best, you're dedicating that to your employer. You give them the best. And then by the time you get around to family or your side hustle or your investment club or whatever it is you're trying to do, That's like your extra time. That's like, or and if you do it at night, you're exhausted. You're not at your best anymore. It's like 7 o'clock at night. Who wants to work at 7 when you've been working all day long? That's exhausting. Or on the weekends when you're like, okay, I've been busting my butt all week. I want to relax on the weekend. I don't want to sit around and think about this business the whole weekend, right? It's kind of hard to do that, right? So what I think is that we have to really think about what Black First really means. And Black First isn't just being Black first and putting our community first. It manifests itself in simply saying that my priorities, our priorities are going to be the top priorities, period. Or I want to structure a life where I really can be Black first. Right? It takes time to structure that life, and it helps if someone ahead of you has the vision to structure that life for you. That's the critical importance of things like the $5 a day plan, right? If I raise my child and I'm invested in the $5 a day plan with them, which is at blackwealthmasterplan.com, I'm investing $5 a day for them in the stock market. So they're building this nest egg of cash that is going to liberate them from the corporate plantation. They don't have to go to work anymore because they're 25 years old with $150,000 liquid in their bank account. Then they get to decide what the agenda is going to be. He who has the gold makes the rules. He who has the money has the power. Period. If you can't even afford to feed yourself, then you can't have power over your own life. The person that will have the power over your life is the person that's feeding you. This is a consciousness conversation because it goes back to something we discussed very early, which was Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a pyramid where on the very bottom, you got the basic needs, the need for food and water, and then you got security above that. And then after that, you got esteem and all these other things that you need. So if you're operating on the low vibrational frequency on the bottom rung of the hierarchy, where you're literally scrapping for food and water, it's really hard for you to have these lofty dreams and goals and even have control over your own life. The people that will control your life are the people that control your access to food and water.